Good
Oh,
afternoon. How are
good
you?
afternoon. I'm fine, Vincent. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm a little bit under pressure because this
Yeah.
is the fourth live coffee talk I'm doing, and I have had technical problems with all of them. So
Oh,
so I try to solve them all, but I don't know how this gonna be. So I do apologize if something happened because either my microphone goes mute or I don't know what I'm doing. But you
yeah.
can't be a good coach and a good IT, I'll say.
No, I'm not a technical genius myself, so I'm very lucky that I'm here now and I
Yeah,
can see you.
we'll be fine. It's no pressure at all. Just we
No.
only have a bunch of people listening to our conversation, but this is as you said on Twitter. That's usually we will have this conversation up in the mountain with
Yeah.
a cup of coffee,
Yeah.
but it's how it is now. So
Yes, so suddenly everything changed, and yeah, you know that we are supposed to be in Sierra Nevada now, and normally when we are in Sierra Nevada, we catch up for a cup of coffee.
definitely. So first of all, I would like to thank you for not even hesitating to take the chance of joining me for these talks. This is something that randomly came up, and well, I've been very well welcomed by the people who's attending the talks. So
Yeah,
first, once again, many thanks for joining me. And secondly, well, I know the guys were here in Granada before everything blew up in the
yeah,
Spain. And
yeah,
this is actually what I wanted to discuss with you. What's the
yeah,
current situation? How the guys are coping with the with the lockdown and everything. So
yeah, yeah. No, it's a little bit special situation for all of us, and it's new for all athletes and also the coaches in the world. So, and it's true that everything's changed quite fast. We are supposed to be at altitude up in Sierra Nevada. For the people who don't know, that in southern Spain, outside Granada. But we were only having one athlete who was there at first time. That was Kristian Blummenfelt. And I remember because the week when he was there, I was sure it could be some trouble, and we were talking about what we should do. And he was there training, starting the build-up at the altitude, but also some of the other athletes should join him the next week, and we tried to get them to get down earlier because we thought that maybe could be some problems to get out of Norway. So we thought that, okay, if we come down to Spain, to the mountains, we are safe and we can have a good training environment there. So we actually rushed on the airplane tickets, and we were ready to send them off earlier. And I remember it was a Friday, I got a message from the center, and they asked me if I can give you the correct number of athletes coming and when, and all room numbers. And I said, yeah, so here are the latest update, and we are ready, we're coming tomorrow. And then 1 hour later, got a new message. Oh, everything is closed. You cannot go. It's cancelled.
yeah.
And then I think the Spanish Prime Minister had on television at 5 o'clock or something, and 10 minutes later we got a message that it was cancelled.
Yeah,
So
it was
yeah,
crazy.
it was crazy. And
Yeah.
yeah, we had one Norwegian, one Swede, and one Austrian girl there. And we also saw that, especially for the Austrian girl, her border were closing on Monday, so he had a very short time to get home. So it was a little bit stressed at that time, but we managed it, and yeah, everyone is back in Norway now, training.
But
Yeah.
do you have the Olympic Center opening there, or everything is locked down also?
No, everything is actually locked down. So we are not okay. They open up that we can do a little bit organized training now, but for us, the swimming pools are closed. All the training centers are closed. So all the athletes need to train at home, indoor, but we are allowed to go out. And if you are no more than 5 athletes together, it's you are allowed to go out for training. But we have actually organized it that way that everyone is training back home and do their own training. Sometimes one or two athletes decide to train together, but you should keep distance. And yeah, you know how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Kristian was swimming in open water yesterday, and I don't think any of the Spaniards triathletes will ever dare to jump in such a cold water.
No, the water is cold, but we have to say that was more a kind of joke.
Okay.
The water temperature in Norway is too cold, so we have decided that there's no point of try to swim out there. We do a little bit of core bands for strength training back home, but mostly it's more like taking maybe one step back and take a little bit easy time, and then of course start building up a little bit again, and of course starting to think about how you can develop some of your weaker skills in swimming, not swimming but biking and running. So we are getting a little bit back to normal. Yeah, but it's of course limitation. But unlike you in Spain, we are still allowed to go out.
No, here is not.
Yeah, no, we can go out, and especially now in Oslo, the weather is quite okay. We had sun today. It's not very warm, but it's not snowing. I know maybe some of you saw. Some of my athletes were having a track session today in the snow in Bergen. So, the weather is, of course, a little bit challenging. But
I think I already mentioned to you many times, because you guys are superstars for the Spaniards. So I think sometimes you are more on the media than our own triathletes. So they see the media follows you a lot, and they really like. What the athletes are achieving, and there is a lot of. That's why I got to know about this open water swim that Kristian was doing, because it was published pretty much everywhere. So
yeah, that's good. No, I have to say that it's interesting, because we probably get more media attention in Spain than we get in Norway, and the one place in the world that the athletes can be stopped on the streets on the airports is in Spain.
Nice.
And I have to say we have some nice friends down in Spain and in Granada, and last year at altitude camp they invited us for an evening sunset run up to the Alhambra. Fantastic place. So we enjoy Spain.
I'm telling you, this is not just to please your ears. It's something that is true, actually. So I wanted to take in advantage of having you on board, and since most of the Norway has been in this position 10 years ago, but nowadays we have most of the courses I deliver are for emerging federations or still developed federations. So most of the people who will be watching us now are coaches who are either trying to develop their own teams in their hometowns, or part of some national coaches of small federations. So they really like to hear, the way how we progress from the very basics up until where we are now. So I'm going to just try to discuss with you a couple of questions that I consider important for them. Yes, because most of the answers we already discussed it, but that was a private conversation. So I would like to hear from you what are the main pillars in coaching when it comes to juniors and youth athletes.
Okay. I like to talk a lot, so I need to start with a little bit warmer introduction.
Go ahead. I can't go anywhere, so don't worry.
Actually, when I started coaching junior athletes, I actually was a little bit unsure how to do it. We were also a development country. We have no history in triathlon. What we had in the beginning, we had a few young athletes who wanted to do the work, and I was asked if I could help them out. And I started actually working with Kristian Blummenfelt when he was 16. But at that time, the only persons I have coached before was some age group athletes and Ironman long distance. So for me, it was also quite new. And for me, it was find the balance to, okay, how can we incorporate the way we think is a good way of develop, how we see it from Norway perspective, but also learn from the other country with a long history and tradition in triathlon. And I remember I was really nervous, and I was as a coach in the first development camp in Auckland before in Auckland before the Universe, and
was 2012, yeah.
Yeah, and it was Sergio who was with you yesterday, who was the head coach, and I was trying to learn and listen to him and talk to other coaches, and but I was a little bit nervous about how we should do it, what was the right position, how to think it, but during the years you learn a little bit, and what you see that it's a little bit. It's in many ways it's quite basic. We were not many, so we tried to build up a good environment, a good training system, and to have the athletes who want to train, to be motivated, to help them with the motivation. So a good training environment. We were a little bit on different places in Norway, so we need to find meeting places where we can train together. And I also learned that in the beginning, everyone want to do it so complicated. You say, oh, we need to do this and this and that. And in the beginning, it's more, you need to be patient, take your time. If you take it step by step, you will develop and keep the basic right. It's not any big secret in the beginning, but of course, when you are young, then you have the time to develop your technical skills, and it's not like should not do that. It's very important at that time. So work on the technique, and at that time, for instance, I was not able to follow them on the, let's say, the swimming session. So they were swimming with a swim coach, swim clubs, and they were working on the technique skills there, but what we see as one of the main things is still that you need to have a good training environment. You need to have fun when you do it. You need to have a good mix of people together, and to be patient. It takes time to develop an athlete, and especially in the beginning when you have athletes coming in from different backgrounds, you will see that you cannot see on the result when they are 15, who will be the best athletes, because someone comes from swimming, and of course, when you're swimming is good, you probably will have no problem staying with the front group on the bike too. But if you are coming from running, you could be a fantastic runner, but your swimming the first year will be probably so bad that you start biking in the last group, and when you are finished your bike, you are so tired that you cannot use your running speed at all. Yeah. So it could see, oh, he's not talented, he will not be good, and stuff like that. So everyone need to be patient, and you need to work on your skill. It takes some time to develop it, and yeah, that is, and keep it simple.
Keep it simple. This is actually funny because the four coaches had these coffee talks with have agreed on the same thing. Like the basics needs to be properly developed, and without those, you can't progress forward. So it's I also understand that the new coaches wants to make things super complicated, and they want to write programs that looks amazing using a terminology that nobody will understand, because that will give them kind of prestige. But this is not actually how it should be.
I see that when, especially if you have in discussion with, for instance, some foreign athletes who maybe want to join our group or want to be coached by me, that they want some exceptional, special magic formula, and most of the time it's just basic training, and it is not secret. And if you see my training program, it's quite easy. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand it. But you need to work on the basic thing, and you need to work on your speed, your technique, your endurance, and of course you can have a variation and try to make some good training program and fun training program. But the thing is, you need to actually do the work you needed to do to develop.
Definitely. It caught my attention once I went up to the center and I met you there, and you were taking over the rowers, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yes.
So was kind of I think, if I can recall properly, was kind of a proposal from your Olympic committee that each coach from different sports were taking over the other athletes, and that
was actually quite funny, and that also say a little bit about the Norwegian system, because Norway is a very little country, very few top athletes, and a few sports actually. So we have every year since the Rio Olympics, every October we have been in training camp in the altitude, when we come from different summer endurance sports. It's swimming, it's rowing, it's of course triathlon. And that time you were there, we were there with the national rowing team. And we were actually, I was in charge of that interval session the rower should do. And of course, I don't know anything about rowing, about the technique, but I know about the physiology, what you should aim for and how you should pace yourself. And we took some lactate tested. And you see that just with the connection you have with athletes, the understanding of the basic physiology, you can actually give them quite good advice on how they should do the training. And what was actually very interesting, that even Olympic gold medalist rower will listen to you and appreciate the advice you gave to them, because it makes sense.
Definitely. So that takes me to the next point I wanted to discuss with you, because I truly believe on setting a multidisciplinary team of people, because we can be up to date with all the topics, like, as you mentioned, physiology, nutrition, biomechanics, etc. So I do believe, well, if you cannot have it next to you, but at least have someone you can refer to when you have questions. I know you have one. You have some people who are working with you. You have the physiologist. You have also an assistant coach. So, from 1 to 10, how would you rate having a multidisciplinary team around you, and how do you actually, for the success of the Norway Triathlon, and how do you delegate and deal with such a team?
Okay, that's a very long question. But first, the team we have is the best team ever. We are working really, really close together. But that is also a development of our team, because when we started, I was the national coach, I was the sport director, I was doing everything. And after a time, especially when the athletes also develop, you see that you have some limitation. I'm not the best in everything. I'm not best in anything actually, but I know quite a lot of things in a few different topics. So I've been able. I'm kind of a guy that if I see I don't have the highest possible knowledge, I go to people to get it. So it's two parts. We have someone who's more employed by the Olympic Federation. That's a nutritionist. That's a psychologist, and also, we have one doing the basic motoric technique training and stuff like that. So they are from Olympic Federation, and they are helping the athletes in their training. But it's still me that I make the program. I have for all the best athletes. And besides that, we found out that since we are not seeing the athletes every day because we are in different city. We found out that especially for the top athletes, we need to have more attention to the swimming training. So we employed a coach who's really good in swimming. He was actually on the national swimming team and also triathlon team before he went over to coaching. So he's the number one guy in the swimming and working with all the swimming programs. And then we have also a seasoned coaches who working with the junior athletes, and at last we have a sport scientist or physiologist who's with all training camp we have in altitude or in heat and doing all the testing we need to do. But of course you need them to working together. So now we have a very fine balance. So it's more like, let's say we are going to Sierra Nevada for a 4-week training camp. I'm making the whole training program, but for swimming, I said, okay, on this day, because of the other things we want to do, it should be an easy session, or we should work in the VO2 max, or we should work on this or this topic. And then come the swimming coach in, and he's making the swimming program. And after that, we put in the sport scientist, and then we talk, is the working load or training load on this session or this in this microcycles, is it optimal? Is it too much? Is it too little? Could take it a little bit up and down? And then we discuss that, and then we say, okay, and then we need to do some testing before we go to altitude to find out what is the individual specific goals to develop during this camp. And then there's more the sports scientists to do the testing, who do the analysis. Then I talk to him, and then we have talked and discussed and agreed. We go to the athlete, and then we go and say to the athletes. So it's a quite good team that need to work together. And of course, just 4 years ago, I did it all by myself. But then the workload was very high, and some of the little small details we want to be better than everyone else in the world. I need to say that.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very good that you have other people to do it, because if I should do everything, it will be some topic you need to be more basic, because let's say in nutrition, I'm not the nutrition expert. So when we have a nutrition expert, so why don't use it? When we have a sports scientist who can everything about the number and want to spend all his time learning more about how we could improve everything in small details, let him work with that, and I can have the overall picture and make the training program for athletes. So, okay, that's a long answer, but we have different coaches, experts in our team, and we are dependent on everyone. And for me, it's working well together, and I think that the team we have now is the best. And
I tend to share this message to the people who is around, because obviously, as I told you, there are a lot of fans here in Spain that really love what you're doing, and they especially love Kristian. And I'm sick of tired telling them that it's not only what Kristian does on training. So the results doesn't come randomly. There is a huge team effort behind the scenes, and you just have actually explain a little bit more how do you guys operate. And it's not just seeing Kristian running 21K or going out on the bike for whatever. So it's everything is measured, everything is controlled, and nothing is just left there and see what happened. So I'm glad you have explained how they work. So I don't know if you want to add something else.
No. As you see, I was just supposed to say, because when you started out, I think it's quite simple. Okay, it's basic. Most of the basic training you do, and it's quite simple. But then you see, when you go into the small details, and we need to every day we want to work like that. We think that we are doing a better job than the rest of the world. I know that all other coaches and also athletes have the same approach. But that is something that motivates me and motivates the other on the team. And I think the coaches and everyone, and of course the athletes, we are a very good team working close together and having a really good time doing it. Even if we work hard and train a lot, and it's a big machinery, I think everyone thinks we do every day what we want to do most in the world, what we want to do.
I can tell every time I meet you anywhere, it's a good environment. And I think if the work you are doing or the people you are working around you weren't as good as you are describing them, and nothing will work, because you spend a lot of time away from home. And I always share this with the people that believe going in a high altitude is a lot of fun. And I say, well, it's a lot of fun through social media. But when you are there 21 days, there is no fun in there. There is no fun being isolated on the top of the mountain because for those that don't know, in Sierra Nevada, there are no clubs, there are no bars, there is nothing. No. You can just go and spend your time, especially in summertime. So it's a tough time. It's a tough time to be. So whenever we brought age groupers, they are okay for a week, 2 weeks, so, but only one day they just want to get out of there because it's not that simple. So without this amazing team you're just describing, I don't think that will be possible. No. So I also wanted to ask a little bit, and I know there are some guys already asking questions. We're going to leave them for the end. Because now we're experiencing a new situation, which is training indoors. And we never had such a situation that forced us to stay indoors. You be here in winter time, and even in winter time, you can easily go out, ride your bike. So unless it is heavily raining or snowing in the case of Granada sometimes. But I'm seeing a lot of people doing crazy stuff, like running marathons inside in the middle of the corridor, or 5 hours on the bikes, etc., etc. Being Norway, a country where you have more experience training indoors, what kind of recommendations would you give for those that now needs to spend most of the time locked within four walls?
Okay. You come to, of course, we have a special situation in the world now, and everyone needs to adapt it. I think in many ways that in Norway, we handle it quite well because we are used to training indoor. But the thing is, for indoor training, a lot of athletes say it's boring, not so motivating, and it's very difficult to do it, the work you need to do. For us, it's quite the opposite because indoor is the perfect environment to control your training 100%. So for us, it's more like have a good plan. When you go on your indoor bike, know what you're going to do there. Have a plan, have a program, have an interval set. Don't just go out and see what's happening. You need to have a plan, and then you do it and execute it. And if you do that, I think you will find the training to be quite motivated. And for us, indoor is a very effective way of training. You have no disturbance at all, especially if you do any intervals. You don't need to stop for red light or headwind or tailwind or whatever. So have a good plan. Think about what you should do and do it. And it is much more effective than going outdoor. You just need to do it right. But of course, I understand that sometimes you need some other motivation. So if you have a easy session indoor, sometimes our boys go out for 4 hours indoor. That normally don't do it, but now they will do it. So they're riding Swift, for instance, and maybe they're watching some motivational videos. And I see that they very often look at the old races and to see see some races that motivate them, or see the races that can learn a little bit about how they raced or learned. So normally when I see my athletes if they do interval session, they are normally just themselves and they are looking at the wall. If they have an easy session, they are very often on Swift. And they are having some videos from some of the old WTS races. So
is for you Instagram a device that helps you quantifying the training load too?
What you say?
If it's Instagram, a device or a tool that you are using for quantifying the training load, because sometimes you find out through Instagram that the athletes you are coaching went out on the bike, so you go to the program, it's like, no, there was no bike today. So.
It's sometimes, but I have to say I'm quite lucky that my boys are normally doing what I asked to do, and if they do something other, they do it extra.
Extra, no? They take all the devices away, so you cannot see what they did.
No way. It's funny, but that is actually an aspect of coaching today, because you need to be with athletes, of course, and we are together a lot on training camp, but we also see with all the technical advice, if you can use it in the right way, it's a huge benefit for both the coaches and the athletes. You have a quite much tighter connection now, even if you don't see each other. So even if I don't see Kristian today, I know his track session, what he did, because of course I had planned it, but I also know how he performed it. I can also see on Instagram that he did it, but I also see it on training things.
So many ticks that he actually did it. No? The load on training pics, the Instagram post, etc., etc. No, that's a good one. So leading into the Olympic Games, what was for you a relief when the games were postponed to next year, or how do you guys receive the news?
Okay, I think of course it's because of the situation we have. I think everyone was very happy that we have a date. We know that it will be next year. So I think that is good for all athletes. But I also see that you have different ways to handle it. And for our athletes, it's more like, yes, we have one more year to improve. Give us one more year. We will be even better than this year.
Wow.
So it's a nice approach. That's our approach.
So how are you going to actually plan or schedule next year? It's going to be way different that you had it if the games were happening this year, or what's going to happen?
That's a very good question, because we are, of course, making plans for what we should do for next year. But it depends a little bit about when the races are starting. Yeah. I think that in the ideal world, we want to do some of the same thing that we did last year, building up to the Olympics. That means altitude in the summer, altitude again in October, November, heat camp in the winter time, and then Sierra Nevada and altitude in the spring. So we want to try to do that again, but of course we don't know how the race season will be, but I have a feeling that it will be a quite intense fall with September, October, maybe November racing, and then we will of course have a challenge to put in the training blocks that we need to do at altitude, because I think we need to do altitude. So we are discussing that a little bit, and we think that when we are starting to build up now in this spring, it will be one hell of a year when it will go quite busy with racing, training camps and traveling until after the Olympics next year.
Yeah, and on the top of that, we have, if I might use this word, the lions inside the cages from very long time, because I think for the guys, the last race was Bahrain, no? If I can recall properly. For you guys, for Kristian, and because I saw them there racing. Bahrain was the last race they did, right?
Yes, actually, Kristian did the Portuguese National Duathlon Championship.
Oh. Okay, because you did a camp in Rio Mayor with Sergio. I remember that one. But for most of the athletes, they'll be almost not a year, but over 8 months without proper competition. So I do believe once the races will be announced again, coaches will have to kind of hold the athletes, because everybody will like to race everything, and especially for those that still need to qualify and need to get points from here and there, and etc. etc. So let's see how it goes. There were some rumors that perhaps the World Championship this year is going to be a single race, so only one race championship. So let's see what comes up. But it's for Norway's, the Olympics, e-race.
Yes, we have to say that Olympic is in many ways the most important race we have during a 4-year period. It is more, I was going to say that, yes, of course it's important. When I was employed back in 2000, and 2012, I officially started with Federation. I started working with Kristian 1 year earlier, but then we have a strategic plan. So when I was employed, they just showed me the plan and said, you will have 1 athlete in the Olympics in Rio de Janeiro, and you should have medals in Tokyo. So of course, the whole program we have is building up and develop athletes to perform at the Olympics.
Leo Chagon from Costa Rica is asking a good question that is saying, team working for it or 3 potential individual medals?
Oh,
that's perhaps too much to share. That's a strategy, eh?
Yeah, that's it's really a tough question, and I don't think the boys would like if I say that we are working as a team and it's Kristian or Casper or Gustav who was supposed to win. But originally, what we can do now is to develop all athletes the best way we could, and when we come to race day, at least they should not race against each other until they come to on the last part of the run, and then we will see who is the strongest. But right now, I have to say that the group and the team is a really good group working well together, and the training and the quality of the training we are able to do with this, especially these 3 top athletes, are fantastic. I know they are helping each other and develop each other. Yeah.
That's also, to me, is also key and says a lot about your management skills, because having, how will say, like you have the strongest roster, no? Or you have a roster with a lot of chickens, is fine. But when you have more rosters inside the same fence, then it becomes a little bit tricky, no? So you actually have they are nice guys. So I made
they are. But I think we see that if you are honest to each other, that triathlon is a quite small community, and you see different national team and also the training groups. I think a lot of fantastic, good coaches and athletes out there who is working well together, and you see a lot of good teams who are doing the job together in a good way. So I think that's a little bit about how the triathlon community is, and I'm very proud of the team and group I have, but I see some of the same things in many other training environments.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to ask you because you mentioned you did already some training camps for heat acclimatization. So how are you structuring them, and how long do you think an athlete needs before going to, let's say, in this case, Tokyo, to be able to perform at their best?
No, that is a very good question, tricky question, and also one short answer. I think is quite individual, and in general, I think. Okay, we see some tendency that some people are overdoing it and think it's much more complicated than it is. And I actually think that the guide that I do have developed for beating the heat is good reading. But let's say around 2 weeks, you should be able to acclimatize for the heat. That's an answer to your question. But as I say, the guide that are available on the internet is quite good, and it is not any really big secret you need to do. But of course, you need to be take caution that the heat is and humidity is quite challenging, and you need to respect it, and you need to, of course, prepare the best you can. That's quite general answer.
But how many weeks prior to the games are you planning to be in there in Japan?
Not so many.
Not so many.
No, we are talking about around 2 weeks.
2 weeks,
yeah.
I think pretty much that's going to be the general approach of all the coaches. And I don't know where you stay in Rio, but do you prefer to be outside the Olympic Village or inside the village prior to the race?
If if we could stay outside, it's maybe best. But of course, okay. When we were in Rio, we were the first day we were staying inside the Olympic Village. That is fantastic because you have the national feeling with the whole Norwegian team in all sports together. So we like that. But when we had the last preparation, we had 2 days just at 2-3 k's from the start venue, outside at a little hostel at Ipanema Beach. That was best. Then we can do the preparation and what we do. For the Tokyo is, I think that since the closest place you can stay in
the village
is in the village. So we will stay in the village when we can. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm going to ask you the last questions, and then I leave the floor for the guys that want to ask you some things. So you mentioned and linking that with what you say about taking over the rower sessions. You mentioned that once you know the physiological demands of the sport, you can but you can train any kind of discipline. So what are for you the key physiological parameters in the current triathlon competitions?
What you say? One of the things that the Norwegians have been known to do a lot of, and probably more than most of other athletes is we are putting a lot of emphasis on develop the anaerobic threshold. We think and know that triathlon is an endurance sport. And when I started seeing from outside how, especially top athletes were coached, I think I see some tendency that too many put too much emphasis on the anaerobic part, and the anaerobic part in triathlon is very little. Of course, you know how you do Olympic races all out in the beginning, and but to handle that in the best possible way, you need to have your big endurance engine and develop the anaerobic system. With the threshold is very important. That was in the beginning. It was more like do some threshold session. We put a lot of emphasis on that, much more than speed session and race pace session. Of course, you do that too early when you come into race season, of course. But a lot of anaerobic threshold and easy session. And then when they get older, athletes are developing a little bit more. We can also put a lot more, see a little bit more about how the aerobic, the fat max responds to work on develop that, because we see that we can benefit of that, of course. Now the last 2 years we have put a much more energy to looking to see on the individual response to lactate, for instance, the Vela Max. How is the Vela Max on the athletes, and how we should work on that to develop that, and what is important to different kind of races and stuff like that. But mainly, I think that we have been there on the topic too. I said that many people do it too complicated. And I also think that a lot of athletes are spending too much time training at the intensity zones that never used in the race.
In the race,
I cannot see so many points of doing 1,000 meters in 2:40s when you average 3 or 5 in the race. Of course, you could do a little bit of it, but not so much. So it's an endurance sport at all. In the end.
I don't know if you can share that with me, but I used to especially during the level 2 coaching courses, where people think, okay, you race at your anaerobic threshold, and I was telling them, okay, you need to develop, but when you race in the current competition, format, etc., your anaerobic threshold zone is the least where you actually, the zone where you basically don't spend any time at all. That is of course true, but we think if your aerobic engine... Yeah, I do agree with you, but I mean, like the fact of coaches prescribing as a specific session, 10 times, 5 minutes, anaerobic threshold race. I mean, that's never going to happen, as you said. No, there was probably, you're going to have a turn, you're going to have a U-turn, you need to accelerate, you might be doing relays in the group, or you might be drinking water at the end and not pedaling at all. So that was my point.
And that is true. Of course, you need to build the engine and to be prepared to that kind of racing, but you also, of course, need to do training to handle the stress you get in a race situation. But I think a lot of athletes and also coaches start in the opposite direction.
Right.
So I think you handle the thing you need to do to prepare for a race better if your endurance is at the highest possible level, instead of the opposite, and try to build endurance after you. Yeah, but that's quite a difficult thing.
Yeah, definitely.
People,
But what you're saying, and also what I do think, goes aligned with what Roberto Tajuela was saying the other day, Joe Skuman was saying the other day. So it's training have to be, and Sergio, of course, because I met him many times in courses, and we discussed that previously. So training have to be physiological, also specific, not only technically or tactically. So you need to develop pretty much all the energy sources, and that, because it's what is happening. So there are a lot of sprints, a lot of, and what you said just makes sense. If you are not able to run at 2:45 or during competition, why should you do that on your normal training? So it just doesn't make any.
Yeah, it's a little bit that, but of course, as you know, the last year we see, especially on the bike, the technical, it's much more technical. So you need to be able to tolerate the acceleration and the speed changes and a lot of short anaerobic efforts, and be able to run fast after that. And that is a little bit different from in the beginning when I doing was in the past, and of course you need to be able to handle that, and that is, for instance, when you come to terms that the VLA max, to look at that, these numbers are quite interesting, because if they are too low, you will probably have trouble being there. But if it's too high, you will bunk at the end. So yeah.
Definitely, that's why the sports science comes to play into. So
yes,
how it is. So I'm gonna leave give the floor to whoever wants to ask questions for the last 10 or 12 minutes we have till 6, and I'm gonna just pick one of the first one that was regarding the talent. I don't really like to call them talent ID programs, but being Norway as a small country with I do believe you have a few number of or not many licenses compared to other countries. How do you actually? Okay, let me see if I find the answer, because I cannot recall. But was pretty much about the model.
I think I understand the question. The thing is, we have so few athletes that it's very difficult for us to have any talent ID protocol. So when we started the first training session, but the training camp, we had we were around 20 athletes, young athletes. That was all athletes in Norway, youth athletes in Norway who wanted to do triathlon. Out of these, 4 is still on the national team, and 1 is coach. So 5 out of 20. So what that means, it means several things. One thing, I think that the talent you need to be good in triathlon is the talent to do the training and work. I don't think I think almost everyone can, if you have the willing to do engine and want to do the work, you can be as good as you can want to. And we also think that you need to put the best people together in an environment when you're training well together, having fun together, and we have been able to. If you should succeed in talent identification, you need to find really highly motivated athletes, and then you build an environment, and we get athletes who think that the most fun thing they do every day is go out for training.
I was coming to this point there was once where I was talking with Luis Angel Mate. You most probably met him on the high altitude training center. And I was telling him, man, your sport is really tough. And he was like, mine? No, yours is really tough. I wake up in the morning, he was telling me, and I see the triathletes are already running. Then I'm having breakfast and they're jumping in the water. I go out, for a ride. And when I come back, you guys already finished your bike session and you still are hitting the gym for that. So do not tell me my sport is tough, because you guys, you work overtime. And and actually that's key, I think, for triathlon, that the amount of work you need to put if you want to succeed is quite high.
It's very high. And you see a normal day on training camp, of course, you swim, bike and run almost every day.
Yeah, definitely.
And at high altitude camp, we are up to 8 hours training a day. And when the preparation before every training session is quite long day.
Quite long too. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So Coach Ahmed from Egypt is asking if is it enough to do indoor bike, strength, yoga, and different kind of cardio, as no pools are open and not allowed to run outside?
Oh, it's much better than nothing. I would say that all training you do is good. I will maybe do a little bit, if you can do some little bit swim imitation with the band, the rubber band or something, is good. But indoor biking is good. Use the time to develop your skills, not your skills, but your engine on the bike. By having a good program, doing some mix of intervals, and you can do it much better than out there.
All right. Okay. Coming to another question, I think there's more, it's more sports science specific. They are asking if you have measured the aerodynamics in the cycling during training and oxygen saturation through MOXIE or some similar devices.
Yes, we have done all of that. Last year, we did almost all of the races measuring aerodynamics, drag on the bike. We also done some testing to try to find the most aerodynamic position with also the most energy efficient position. That is not always the same.
Yeah, definitely.
So we actually been doing that a lot on the bike. And normally for training, we're using a MOXIE for oxygen saturation measurement on all cycling session at least, and quite often on a run also. On the run.
Okay. Thank you very much for the input. And how to improve bike run-offs? There's someone asking.
What you say?
How to improve the bike run-offs? I do believe she means like running off the bike.
Yeah, okay.
By doing them.
By doing it, yes. I think we especially when it coming to the races, we do a lot of race-specific brick workouts, and I think that is something almost every top athletes do. And then you do some intervals on the bike, and you jump off and have a quick transition and do the intervals on the run. And I think all top athletes, especially on the short distance, do that because you need to practice it.
Okay. I do believe one of the limitations of our sport, and this is something that most of the coaches are still carrying on, is the fact that they're still thinking we are swim, bike, run, and we are not at all. The fact that we cannot do the entire thing in one shot is because of the logistics. But if we had a swimming pool with a bike rack next to it, and then a parking lot or whatever where we could do the bike and then run off that, we'll mostly practice that in the specific sessions. So I'm not going to say, every day, but I think this is one of our limitations why we are not doing more bricks more often. It's the logistics.
Yeah, it is. And I have to say that when we are down in Spain, in Fuerteventura especially, they have a lot of big parking lots who is no traffic, not at all. We're using a lot for brick and technical session and on the bike, and also the brick session. I know the Geophilia group is using it a lot when they are down there. So there's a lot of places to do that. And when we are other places, when we have open water facilities, we of course can do swim, bike, but mostly we do, it's mostly bike, run. Actually.
By run.
Yeah.
I think it's more nowadays. I'm not gonna say it's less important to do swim bike, because if you miss the pack, then you're screwed. But bike run actually is what it's a key skill in performance. So there's another question that says, what advice would you give to a student who would like to work for a triathlon federation as part of support team?
Wow,
that's a good one, and a tough one too.
Make sure you study the right things so we can have a use for it on the national team. So if you go to school to be a plumber, maybe we don't need you in the. No. Of course, if you take an education and student that is, you can use it on a team. That's always good. But I think it's more like I find the triathlon community to be very open. So if you want to see how it's working for a private team or a national team, and you go to the coaches and ask, can I come and visit you? Can I come and help? I think you will not get yes every time, but I think a lot of coaches will accept that that someone can come
and I want to help.
Want to help,
definitely. And I would like to share that with you because, and also for the people who is listening, because now Roberto has been a quite successful coach in the last years, but his journey started a long time ago, so around 14, 15 years. And I remember back in 2000, I think was 10, we both worked for the federation and for the Valencia Triathlon Federation, and the budget was pretty much nothing, and we ended up sharing a room in a hostel with two more athletes. The athletes slept on the beds while we slept on the floor because there was no money. So we went through a lot of situations that now it seems okay. I'm working for the ITU. He's coaching Fernando, etc., and everybody wants this spot. You know, okay, be part of the ITU or be part of a high performance environment or whatever. But the journey starts, way behind. So it's
it's always way behind, and we have a kind of different stories to how we started. It's always, if you have passion for the sport and you get involved in sport, is always a possibility. And you see, it takes some time to develop.
Definitely.
I never know when I started this position that I will sitting here and discussing with you and within a few years later, because I didn't know by a little bit by coincidence. I've been doing triathlon myself for 30 years, but it was a quite big step to go into coaching. And when you're going to coaching, I was like, okay, I can coach Ironman athletes, age group athletes, because that's easy and not so much work. I don't like short distance because I was doing long distance myself. But then you meet some athletes and wow, this is interesting. And it's quite complicated because, you know, the dynamic of the racing, and then you met other coaches, other athletes, and it's really interesting. And I really enjoy the journey we are into. And
definitely.
And the big triathlon family and community, it's I really love to be a part of it.
The guys, Kristian, Casper, and Gustav, moving to long distance. Do you think they'll be okay? I cannot say more successful because they've been successful pretty much in both distances. But do you think they'll, based on the physiology and everything, they'll be able to deliver better performances in long distance rather than short, or how do you see that?
I'm not sure if they can deliver better results because I think they want to be the best in all distance. But if you should be very honest, of course, Gustav won the Sunstep 3 World Championship, so of course he can handle that distance, and the boys know they can do that. But we all know that going up to Ironman is quite different, and that is something we don't know. But based on the physiology and the tests we have, we are quite sure that they could be at the top level and, for instance, race to be in Ironman Hawaii if they decide to do it in a few years. But I think it's quite difficult to combine it with the short distance. And for now, into Tokyo and also Paris, if, in 4 years' time, that's the main goal for all of these athletes. So it will not be a big transition to longer. They will do. You see that they can handle 70.3 racing at a quite high level, and also absorb the training and go back to short distance. But we don't plan to do so much about try to do Ironman. Of course, we have to say we talk a little bit about since Gustav he's qualified for Hawaii this year if you want to, and it was like, okay, maybe he should try that after the Olympics, but then he still need to qualify that he need to do an Ironman race. And we said, okay, it's no problem. We can try to do it, but that's of course since it's after the Olympics. But now the Olympics are postponed. It is like, no, you cannot do it. And of course we totally agree on that, because we will never try to destroy the preparation for the Olympics with doing an Ironman 8 months before the Olympics. So that will not happen. But maybe afterwards. But as I say, that all of these athletes are very sure that they will go all in for short distance racing, at least until Paris 2024. Until Paris 2024,
yeah. And then, okay, now just last question from my side, and I think we can wrap this up. There is that's a fact that we have less participation when it comes to female athletes. Do you think this is due that female athletes in the sport of triathlon struggle when it comes to committing to such a demands of the training and etc. You just mentioned before?
I'm not sure, because we have a big discussion in that in Norway too. One thing is of course triathlon, but we see that in almost all endurance sport. The girls I know who's on the national team and I see racing around the world are really hardworking and motivated, and they do the job at the same as the boys. I don't see any limitation there. But what we can see in Norway, and what we're talking about in Norway, that many women, they want to have it a more safer lifestyle. When they are on the edge, should I go professional or should I choose education? 9 out of 10 will choose education because that's safer on the long term. But when I had the discussion with my boys, when they were going to finish high school, there was not a discussion because they were going professional. They were not even thinking about it. Yeah. But all the girls we have on the team now is studying, and they want to study because they have really trouble to let it go. It is also, I think, a little bit about, normally you see, if you see the result or the age of the top athletes when you succeed at the highest level, you see that women need a few more years.
More years, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And that is quite natural. And if you have the time and the commitment, you will succeed in the end. But on the way, I think that many girls find it's a little bit too challenging because they probably want to choose the safer parts.
Totally right. Okay. Yeah. So, Arild, thank you very much for your time. It's been a really, really interesting chat with you, and hopefully the people who was watching us enjoy it as much as I did and learn something new today. And
I hope so.
That's it. Just wishing you that the situation pass really, really soon, and we are we're back to
cross fingers and hope it
to normal and
go to the normal. Yeah.
And next coffee we have it here in Granada. We can even do it. We can also do it live on Instagram if people want to join. But definitely,
maybe, but we also will meet for a coffee in Granada.
Definitely,
then we have a mutual commitment, and then we need to meet, and then everything needs to be okay for next time.
Definitely. Yeah. So thank you very much once again, and that's it. So wishing you guys the best during this time, and looking forward to see the guys racing very, very soon if everything goes as planned.
Same here. Okay. Nice talking to you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.